vision. UBISOFT. Microsoft. Amongst a few others, who I won't call out in this video purely based off the topic I'll be covering, these are the heads of the Hydra people, that hideous amalgamation of trash and horse crap that gets fed to us on an annual basis with only faint glimmers of quality every once in a while in their offerings. These are the ones who supposedly represent the AAA market. You know, the AAA market, right? For many, it's meant to be the pinnacle of what this industry can achieve, given the biggest budgets, the largest number of staff, and the marketing to power it. Saying to the world that this is video gaming. Come join our industry, humanity. You don't know what you're missing. Yeah, right. So, as always, we hear the drums of war against parts of the industry that, according to these guys, need to change or are no longer as viable as they were in the past. Or hell, sometimes these guys come out and straight up deny to our faces that this is how they actually feel. Regardless, where there is smoke, there are infernos with these companies, especially EA. So, we hear the rumblings. Single-player AAA games are becoming no longer viable as single-purchase products. AAA costs too much now, so we have to make our money back somehow.
You son of a... I could just go off on them. I'd love to juice them sometime, Just put their hand in there.
And that somehow normally involves DLC, downloadable content, season passes, pay me now and we promise to deliver some great content later on, microtransactions, want extra bits of content in your game that you used to have before, but sorry, it'll cost you extra now. Loot boxes, take a gamble, people. We promise that the odds of you getting something worthwhile are high or medium or mostly quite low. Or how about different versions of the game that supposedly give you additional bang for your buck if you buy the Day 1 edition, or the Ultra edition, or the Mega Ultra edition, or the Supreme Ultra Mega Ultra Master Fully Complete £100. We know you're stupid and you're probably going to buy this edition. Business models are business models. I have no issue with them, but like with many things, it all depends on how it's offered, and for the most part it's failing, but hey, I'm going off course there. This is what they tell us, right? AAA development today is so expensive that they will barely make their money back, unless the game sells at least 10 million units, and if it doesn't, we have to ponder the future of the series. Brothers, sisters, don't listen to the trash talk that comes out of these people's mouths. Trash talk, that reminds me of a Michael Jackson song.
Oh, baby, you just sit around just talking about it. Just taking money.
You want to know who the real heads of the Hydra are? Well, in fact, it's not the heads themselves, being the developers and the publishers, at least for the most part. The ones in control are the men in suits who have thrown a saddle on the back of the Hydra and ride around wreaking havoc on today's AAA industry, whipping the publishers in the back of the head like runaway slaves. Those beast riders are the shareholders. The shareholders pretty much control the AAA market today. Telling the developers and publishers, what direction they feel they should be going in. And depending on who the publisher is, also depends on if they like being whipped. which causes double trouble, especially if you are these AAA giants who have a chokehold on the industry like the scum that is EA. So let's get into this and try to work out why we are in the current situation that we are in and how we can fix it. Because something has to make these shareholders and developers feel like they need to start saying, things like single player is becoming irrelevant and that all these additional business models are required, right? Well, believe it or not, that something is us, the gamers. We are the ones to blame, for the most part, as we are the consumers, the very people who keep these other people in business. We've seen over the last decade many business models coming in that seemed innocent at first, but over time have slowly started to degrade the products that we buy from many of these AAA developers on the market today. I guess it's kind of like a democracy. Every time we continue to remain silent or give in to what the government proposes, or in this case rolls out, the more it becomes standard until it reaches the point where we all shout, "Hey, that's bullshit. Why am I paying more taxes and getting less back? How do we let this happen?" I've said it before and I'll say it again. It is vitally important that the hardware manufacturers, in this case being Nintendo, Sony and Microsoft, do not, and let me stress this, do not let these third parties hold all the strings. Every single platform holder should not rely 100% on third parties holding up their platforms with their content alone and dictating business models on their platforms that encourage their own and others' views on how content should be delivered. Of course, the likes of EA, Activision, UBISOFT, Microsoft, etc., would love for everyone to jump into their business models. What better way to make tons of cash than to ensure everyone is in some way constantly connected to their services in a way that gives them more control over the consumer than the consumer has over them. If retail games disappeared and we went fully digital, how do we decide on where we want to buy our products from or how much we want to pay for them? This would suit those companies perfectly. If EA want their games to be completely online, to forsake single player and to have their consumers locked into their ecosystem somehow, then that's entirely up to them. I have no issue with that whatsoever. My issue is when they come out and try to push their own thoughts onto the rest of the industry in some sly way to try and make people see how they see, as if it's the only way to go. To that, I stick both my middle fingers up, exactly the same way I stick them up to anyone who says we need to go completely digital. It's the only way. Video games should not be destined to become multiplayer only or online only. The same way I refute that books, movies and music should become group social or online only. Video games are both a personal and social experience, something that, like its software, should remain diverse in its offerings to new and old consumers. Single player games are not slowly disappearing. The only thing that should disappear are the shitty shareholders, developers and publishers who come into this industry and slowly ruin it from within, eager to exploit the consumer base from every angle. As always, the best course of action to stop these types of people is to vote with your wallet. Stop buying all the stupid crap that gets fed to us as if it's a necessity, when it is seriously not. Games are being carved up by these developers and publishers because these big AAA companies need to give these shareholders, these investors, a return on their investment. Hence all the poorly rolled out loot boxes, DLCs, microtransactions, season passes, etc. I can categorically assure you that more money is spent on the advertising, the crap trailers that we see, and all the hoo-ha that surrounds AAA gaming today than is spent on the game itself. Do you remember when that douchebag Rich Hillman from EA came out a good few years back? I think it was like about 2010 or something, saying that EA now typically spends 2 to 3 times as much on marketing and advertising as it does on developing a game. Because they find it more vital to get the games seen in the charts regardless of its quality. I've got the story up on the screen now, or I've attached a link in the description below for you to read upon if you like. AAA games cost a lot, sure they do, but nowhere near as much as they make out. Or so much that paying £50 for one and the game selling 1 million or so would not make a return for them. Them saying that single player will be a thing of the past is nothing but lies. Lies to ensure that their pockets get filled through the broken and stripped down trash that they try to sell to us today. And if you think single player is dead, then look no further than the single player games that have released this generation alone and the sales numbers they have brought in, most recently being Mario Odyssey, which has shifted to 2 million sales in 3 days, or other single player games like Horizon Zero Dawn, Tomb Raider, Nier Automata, Breath of the Wild, The Witcher 3, Dark Souls, The Last of Us, etc., etc. The list goes on. Remain in control, people. Cherish all the game forms that we have. Don't feed the machine that's ruining the industry, and go out and buy a Nintendo Switch with Mario Odyssey because that game is off the hook. Anyway, mini rant / discussion over. I would love to hear your own thoughts on what I've just discussed. Agree, disagree, doesn't matter. Let me hear from you, and as always, thanks for watching. Peace.